high school there. I think it had 5 kids.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started a little after 6:30. I don't want to keep people out too late tonight. So thank you for joining us. This is the second in our kind of district barnstorming series where we're going school to school, help educate and engage in community conversations with folks from our different schools about what we're calling our primary priorities or the needs that face our buildings across the elementary division of the district. So tonight we'll be starting with an overview of, this should not be WPS, it's supposed to be BPS, I don't know why it didn't cross over. So descriptive information of the building, share the facility challenges about Booth Free School. Dawn and I will present. Emily would normally be here, but Dr. Rue had another meeting tonight. Her husband's being honored for a boat rescue, and so he's getting a special commendation. So I told her I think she should probably be there tonight, and so she sends her regards. Opportunity for parent feedback and questions, and then we'll adjourn for the evening. So again, we just want to thank you for coming out tonight and joining us at Booth and taking the time to delve into these conversations. We'll be talking about one of the issues tonight that we're facing, and that's related to the physical plant and the facilities themselves. And today our team, like I said, is just going to be a dynamic duo of myself, I'm Mark Austin, the superintendent, and Mr. O'Leary, the director of facilities. So tonight's goals come together as a community to collaborate and learn, make sense of the challenges that face us, and have the opportunity for open discussion. So just to give everyone a sense of who's in the audience, we'll ask folks to just do a show of hands when I name something that describes you. So if you are a parent in the community, want to raise your hand, a parent of a Booth student, thank you. Teachers, community members, anyone who wants to go by anything other. We have some board members, we'll do board members. We have quite a number of board members tonight. So that gives you a sense of who's in the room tonight, so thank you guys. So let me give you some facts about Booth Free School. So the school serves a population of grades K to 5 as of this Monday, 84 students. We have 77 who come from Roxbury and 7 who tuition in from other towns. As you know, the school has been ranked #1 in the state and consistently scores well above state norms. The school boasts about 20,000 square feet of instructional space, and the building sits on a just under a 5-acre parcel of land. So here's some other facts about the building. The building was originally constructed in the 1860s. We had a single story.
1856.
What's that?
1856.
1856, I guess. And then we had a single story wood frame building that was 940 square feet. Then some work was done to add to that. So in 1941, another 5,000 square foot building was built next to the original schoolhouse. In 1960, a single story 12,000 square foot addition was added to the existing building. It makes up much of what you're occupying today. That's where we got the gymnasium, the administrative offices, and some additional classrooms. And in 2003, a roughly 2,000 square foot modular classroom was also added. In 1990, there was a major renovation of this school along with some of our other elementary schools that really focused on updating the mechanicals in the buildings. Since then, there's been some major projects have taken place. Back in 2009, a partial roof replacement was completed. Back in 2008, another partial roof replacement. And so the two of those together were significant projects of almost $500,000. And then in 2011, the windows in the building were replaced at approximately $200,000. So, yeah, when we think about the utilities of this building, we get water from a well here on site with the submerged pump and expansion tanks. The state has recommended that a duplicate tank be added to meet our current standards, so we have redundancy. We receive power overhead by electrical wires that goes underground to the building from Connecticut Light and Power. The main power distribution panels in the building are 81 and 62 years old, and they require replacement. At this time, we don't have an emergency backup generator, although one should be installed. And so that's a real need. And we saw some of that come to light during some of the power interruptions around some of the storms early in the year. And I actually reached out and I asked Mr. O'Leary, I said, well, don't we have a generator? He said, actually, no, we don't. And I said, well, why not? And he said, well, the funny thing is, we can't add a generator here because the current electrical system in the school can't handle that. And so we'd have to upgrade the electrical in order to have the generator. So that is something that is going to have to be addressed. In terms of what we do with our stormwater, it's collected from the roof and it's discharged to dry wells, and then that's then sent over to either catch basins or discharged onto the surface where it runs off. The system consists of cast iron, tile, and PVC piping, which is dug up and replaced as we find clogs or as breaks in those systems occur. The tile and cast iron in particular are challenging materials to work with, and certainly they don't last forever. We're actually dealing with an issue with the cast iron plumbing line over at Chapag, and so over time we do see that those things do wear out and need replacement. Sanitary or wastewater is discharged to a septic tank, and then the wastewater then is dispersed to a leaching field. That system is 62 years old and also needs to have a long-term solution as we look ahead. So here are some of the concerns for the BFS facility, sorry. But before we get into that, I want to play a little fun game here. Anyone recognize this or even hazard a guess of what you might be looking at?
Storm? Or like a air thing,
Say that again?
right? It's an air thing, like a storm drain?
Oh, like an air thing or maybe a storm drain, all right? So it definitely looks like something that might be powered by wind power or air. These are actually drawings that were created by Leonardo da Vinci back in medieval times. And he was trying to invent a machine that would last forever. So he was trying to create a perpetual motion machine. And it was increasingly frustrating because in theory this thing should work, and he had all kinds of designs, but he could never design it to actually do in real life what it looks like it should do on paper. And this has been a problem that's plagued humans since the age of the Greeks. And there's a quote here from Hephaestus who says that nothing lasts forever, not even the best machines. And from ancient Greece through medieval times, folks really thought of the world as a machine, to be honest, and thought that there would be a way that we could create machines that would do all of these things, and that someday we get to ones where they never wore out or broke. We still haven't mastered that despite all of our best efforts. So that's where we find ourselves today, right? And so we're going to take a look at the needs of our building in four key areas. We're going to look at the systems, the structure itself, the architectural fit and finish, and then the material safety and hazards, which some people have asked about, things like asbestos and lead, and so we'll talk about that. And then we'll end up with open dialogue. So at this point, I'm going to invite Dawn up to join us, and we're going to share with you a deeper dive in the document that you have before you that has a list of building needs in those areas that we talked about. The blue things that you see here are links, just like you would expect. So we'll have pictures that we'll share with you as well. I think that the pictures really bring to life some of these areas that we're talking about. And I think it's easy in our schools because we do a great job of maintaining them, making them look great. You come in for conferences or for concerts, and you're like, oh, the school looks great. Or this room here is a good example. The teachers decorate them and they look fantastic. So you don't always see some of the things that are going on behind the scenes. And so we felt that we owe it to the community to educate people fully as we think about what we want to do in terms of investing in our schools moving forward. We know that we have some major projects, and so I want to make sure that we're clear about what the needs are as we build our budgets and we start to forecast forward and how to fix these things and how to finance the repairs that we need. So Dawn, if you want to take it away, you can start here, and I'll just kind of be like your Vanna White clicking the picture to open them.
Okay.
I'm not forgetting myself with that reference, but
Thank you. Appreciate that. won't touch the screen this time. Last time it went blank in the end. So I'm here to speak of the facility issues preventing further improvements in the buildings. First, is the building safe? Yes, it's safe for occupants. The existing hazards, asbestos and all, are maintained, and there's this requirement for the state of Connecticut that we do maintain them. So those hazards right now are held at bay. Does the building work for us? Yes, we make it work for us. Is it getting more difficult to maintain? Yes. Our older equipment is starting to fail one piece at a time, and our budgets are starting to try to handle that, but it's bigger than we can do in terms of maintenance. We would like to remove the older equipment. It needs updating, and we would like to improve the air quality and the water quality in the school. There are many hazards in the way of us getting to be able to do that. Can we make additional improvements to update the physical aspects of the space? Not without dealing with our hazards first, because they're in the way of us moving forward. We want to make improvements to position this building and our other elementaries for the future. So, as Mark said, the last renovation to the mechanicals was in 1990. And that was at each of the elementary schools. There were a few room modifications and things like that, but it was mostly just to update the mechanicals. Those mechanicals are starting to fail one piece at a time. And as during COVID, we saw even more than failure. We saw the fact that we don't have a fresh air system that is embedded in the systems. So we'll start with our boilers. This particular school, I changed these boilers. As Barbara Henry said, they came over on the Mayflower.
Don, if you
Yes.
could turn off that first bank of lights, I think you'll be able to see better.
There you go.
There
You
you
want-
go. You
is
remove
that all right?
that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay, so these particular boilers are in the 8 to 10 year range. However, they're older pieces of equipment. They're not modern boilers. They are burning oil. You'll notice that there's very circulators in the system here, here, and here. It's just a rudimentary system where we're making heat like your house and pumping it around the various rooms in here. All of our, okay, so let's start. All of our schools' hot water, our water. Van and I haven't worked together as long as they really have. We'll get the hang. So our water comes from various places like that, and you've all got one in your house. There's 2 in this entire school to feed this particular school.
John, that looks like, that does look like one of my houses. Is this a residential grade water heater?
Yes, it is. That one is 80 gallons, and there are 2 in the school, one up top and one down here. So we'll see that there are various pumps and motorized pneumatic valves. So some of our heating circulators you'll see in the hallway and in the classrooms, these are all outdated. This particular one just pumps water through it and water out of it, and it's got a little fan in it, and doesn't have a thermostat. There's no switch anywhere. It just runs constant when the heat's on. Some of the motorized valves in the system are very ancient. We're looking for the motorized. Motorized. There you go. So this particular building is kind of unique, and what we're looking is upwards here. It looks like it's a side view, but we're looking up at a motorized valve here, and it's basically a piece of equipment that directs the heat either to the gym or to this wing down here. So it's very difficult to balance the gym and the classrooms at one time. We've been working on this for about 10 years, and we've got it where we don't get complaints very often, but it's a very rudimentary system. There's nothing that's controlling. Controls. Our 1990s control panel. We have very little control over the system. If we gain more control, we could get more efficiencies out of the system. There are a number of forced air heating distribution boxes, fan motors, and various other things moving heat around. This particular one is in the ceiling. As you came down the stairs, you saw it down there in the ceiling. There is a thermostat in that, and it'll go on and off based on a thermostat that we strapped on the inside of it to make it work, because what came with it no longer works.
And then,
I'm sorry, I thought somebody was coming.
since hot air rises, is there a problem with that being in the ceiling?
Yeah, it was one of the only places they had to put it. Either side of the hallway were windows, and they had nowhere else to put it, so they put it, oh, I did it.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I did that. Many of those pieces of equipment, not only the fans, the thermostats are worn out, but the bearings in them are worn out too. This particular school has a split system in it, and some of your houses probably have these. This is an air conditioning unit that has an evaporator outside and an air coil inside. It doesn't provide any outside fresh air at all. All it does is cool the air. This particular one is in what used to be the IT room upstairs. And the reason they put it in there was because it had so many computers generating so much heat up there. Those computers are no longer in there, and now we give kids Chromebooks, so that room has a piece of equipment sitting there that really isn't needed. The next slide shows the exterior of it, the split system. I got creative here to show more pictures, so I attached a link to certain words, and then this one I wanted to show two, so I split it up. This is the exterior of that particular piece of equipment, and it sits on top of the hill, and at the time they ran it up the wall and into the space to connect it to that interior air handler.
Don, does that
We wouldn't do
supply heat also?
No, that particular unit is just cooling.
Oh, okay.
It's cooling only, but many new modern ones are both heating and cooling.
Is it providing cooling like from the outside? Air
No,
going through?
no, there's
or
no
is that
air
from the
running
inside?
through the system. It's not like the window air conditioner. So that outside, if you show the system part, that outside piece, what it's doing, it's got a set of coils, kind of like what's in that air conditioner. And what it does is it cools a liquid that goes up into that system, and then a small fan inside the system blows the air across those coils to cool the room. But there's no outside air introduced into the room at all.
What's the implication of that on air quality for our?
Well, that's one of the
in the world
issues.
we're in?
That's one, and we're gonna get to that in some of the other classrooms. The implication is that there is not enough air turnover.
Right, but what do we see the outcome of that? I mean, that could have really detrimental effects.
Well, yes, dust, asthma, various other things. We try to monitor that through the nurses' station, but we don't see any uptick at the moment that I've been informed about.
No. But that system doesn't filter air, right?
No,
Like, it
it-
literally just,
No, it just
Cools.
cools air and recirculates what's in the room. Yeah, right.
So Don, is it fair to say if you need fresh air in the room, you need to open a window?
Yes, we're getting to that, yes. That is
Nothing
correct.
is filtering air. We have no air filter for our children in this school.
Yes, that is, well,
The air,
that is correct, yes.
the window air conditioners. the rooms with
I was
window
just
air
gonna say, the window air conditioner has a very rudimentary quarter of an inch
It's not-
fabric filter that it's not providing what you're looking
what
for.
about like these units, are these ventilators here, Don, do they have a filter in them?
No, those are heating units and they're just convection. So they're relying on the base to be open so that cool air at the ground level will sweep up through them and then hot air will rise above them and circulate, so to speak, like this. So any dust in the room kind of gets moved and circulated by the convection.
I know we're about to ask questions later, but is there no state standard that we're not meeting for?
At the moment,
positive safety?
we meet all the standards we need to operate in the school at the moment.
That's good.
But we are heading there.
We are heading in that
We'll close with
direction.
that.
Okay,
a few
I'm
different
sorry.
Oh,
charges
shocked
there.
by it.
No,
Okay.
listen, it's totally okay.
Maybe that's why our whole class was
We're
out
showing
last
some,
week.
we're showing some of you things that you probably have never seen before in your school. So that was our split system. We have wall-mounted individual heating units. And that one's in a hallway. So this particular one stands on its own. It's got a little thermostat inside here. It's got a little fan in here. And when the thermostat calls for heat, it turns on and again blows air into the hallway. There are no filters in that. We have incoming air louvers serving local areas. This is a shot. I was trying to get a shot of it. This particular school has only one incoming air louver, and it is for the boiler system, not for the classroom. It's feeding air so that the boiler can combust and burn its fire appropriately. But there are no other incoming air louvers in this school. The water systems piping in this school need to be changed from copper to a composite material. And what's happening here is that now what you see here is lead. So there's lead joints in our piping system. The EPA, we all know, period. We don't need the EPA to tell us. Lead is, no amount of lead in our water is safe. No. But we meet the state standards. We test our water quarterly. We test it annually for copper and lead. We test it quarterly for bacteria. It meets all of our state standards. That's why I opened by saying our school is safe at the moment in regard to all of its state standards. We meet all of them.
Question for you, is there any traces of anything in the water, even though it meets standards?
Yes, nothing of hazard that I can.
I just know if there was stuff in the water that,
I have water reports that I can make available if you wanna call, I'll give you a copy. No, at the moment, we meet all of those standards.
is there like a water filter on the system at all, or no?
This particular system has no all school water filter in it.
Okay,
We found no need in this particular school. WPS, those do have their own small filters.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time with this particular fountain down here, and I'll get to that after a while. This particular school doesn't have any sump pumps serving any of its areas. It does have an elevator though. And this particular elevator is an Otis. Out of the 3 schools, the other 2 have a Murray and another Wisconsin or something, but this is an Otis. But the problem is, it is very old and it's got relays in it, and it's not up to date in terms of moving from analog to digital. We moved the Burnham School over to digital at a cost of $60,000.
And Tom,
But it just upgraded an old elevator.
is this a closet where the controls are for this thing?
The answer to your question is yes. This is the mechanical room for,
I just wondered
For
if there's like a
that
chair
particular
here, we see
elevator.
like a vacuum.
well, yes, you're seeing exactly what you see. We have to get creative in our schools to be able to store things out of the way. I suspect when the state elevator inspector comes, he's never said, you've got things in there. I suspect my custodian may move it out of the way before he comes.
Where's the elevator?
So at the top of the stairs,
It's blue.
there is one at the top of the stairs. We're required to have some access for ADA, and that's another point that you just hit on. ADA access. This is the base of the elevator where somebody would come out. It's a very narrow, long hallway where you see it clean at the moment. In a future slide, you'll see that we store all of our tables and various other things in there most times. Our waste,
So is that ADA compliant when you store those things there? Because I know that there's a required 5-foot.
so the answer is no, it's not ADA compliant.
Okay, cool.
I'd be lying if I told you it was. Our wastewater systems in the building are made of cast iron. This particular building, none of them are exposed. That's why I took this picture. All of the wastewater systems in this building are underground. The upper building is underground. There's a line coming from the upper building to the lower building, also underground. This line runs through the entire length of this hallway and then goes outside to a septic tank. I couldn't tell you the condition of that line. I could tell you this, that on average, probably 3 to 4 times a year, I have to have them rooted out. I have to have an ARCO rooter or somebody come and root these lines out. One of the problems with most of these lines is there's not enough pitch on them. Back then, they made them an 1/8 inch to a foot, and it was very, very low. So what it does is it prevents us from putting low flow toilets in the building and things like that. One of the reasons, I'm sorry?
Do we test the soil around there?
As we use well water.
Do I test the soil
Well, for
around?
the
Around the
septic
septic
tank, like
Oh.
underneath, do we go in and test the
The
soil?
answer
around
is
there?
our septic tank is working to its design. The problem is it's 60 some odd years old. And no, I don't test the soil around.
I was thinking around the pipes, like underneath, do you go?
Under the
test
floor
it?
here, to be honest with you, I've got asbestos on the floor that I gotta get through to get to the, that's one of the, when I said that we needed to remove hazards in order to improve the building, those
wasn't
are some
kidding.
of the things that I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah,
We can't get to some of these things to
How
do
old
this.
are these lines?
Well, this particular one was
1960.
put in 1960 when this built, now the upper one was
41, or I think it's even earlier.
41, yeah. I'm sorry, the upper one was 1941, and the building up in the corner over there, those were put in 18 something.
No, actually, no, the
60s.
building up in the corner had an outlet.
Oh, wow. Well,
When and outhouse.
we'll put it this way, Mr. Kava is right. So when they added the upper level, they improved the small original building. I suspect that's where the electric panel came from, but we're headed in that direction. Our septic tanks, at each of these schools, our septic tanks are buried under the ground in our playgrounds. And you see that they're accessible through concrete covers in our playgrounds. Now, I have gone in this one and made repairs. It is working properly. At one point, the dowsing chamber in there broke, and about 6 years ago, I've repaired this system. Now, while you had that picture up, that being the tank, the leach field is the lower level. So the level where the basketball court is, all the way from that court to this, just about shy of that fence, 95 feet long is the leach field. And it's almost the width from where this hill rolls down to just at the edge of the soccer field. When I first came here 15 years ago, there were no fences here. And the first day I came here, there were cars parked all over here watching their kids play soccer. So one of the first things, the first year I did was put that fence in and told them, you can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a septic system, you have to have things like that.
I'm sorry.
If you have a septic system, you have to have things like that, so that, I mean, that's understandable.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. In 65 years, it's been repaired here and there, but that's about all it's been.
Is there like a secondary place to put the septic? Cause you know, if that septic fails, where would you put a new one?
You have a
Or
very
would you just
good
have to replace
question.
that whole one and put one there?
You've got a really great question. This particular
Do you know
property
where it is?
has a lot of wetland down in
Yeah.
the back corner. And there's not it's, as you see, it's taking up a considerable amount of what
It
is
is.
available now. And bounded by
the
both
5 acres
sides
you
and
have?
the other, I think the answer is
No, you'd have to
We'd have
replace
to
that whole
redo
one.
that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
lower.
There's never been a study here where they've studied the soils to determine that. You know, I know the answer for that up at the high school, because we've done that for, for other projects, we've found that. I don't know.
Okay.
Many of our rooftop exhausts, and I show this picture again because it was, you see that little hat looking thing? That's what's above the buildings, located here and there, and you don't see it because it's underneath there, and I'll show you a picture of it. So the way we get fresh air in a building like this, all of our elementary schools, is this is an exhaust unit that runs all the time. And as it runs, you need to open a window to pull the air through. That's how we get fresh air in our buildings. During COVID, our boilers were pumping 70, 72 degrees out, and our windows were all winter long.
I remember that. The kids wore coats.
Yes, right.
Were you able to achieve the right number of air exchanges per hour installed during COVID?
Once the windows were open, you know what? I couldn't answer that question truthfully because I never measured it. What I can say is that when the windows were open, a lot of fresh air was in the room. Now, was it exhausting enough? These exhausts run probably 100 CFM apiece. So the best they could do is 100 cubic feet per minute. And I'd have to figure the room out. But they're located throughout the school. This happens to be one I'm not sure which room that is, but hit the next one. Offices. Now,
This room goes a couple thousand feet.
yeah, I'm not gonna look at that. But here's another one in a ceiling that's in asbestos type spline ceiling. It's glued up underneath, and then the classrooms hit the classroom. Now that one is up under that. I think it's up under the sink over there. Yeah. But that's the extent of fresh air in the classroom. So let's talk about electrical. Mark alluded to the switchgear panel. Now, located in the first building that was built here is this beauty. So I've had a number of people in here, Eversource, contractors, the solar people, all of whom looked at this and said, we think that that's one of the first panels that came out when electricity first came out.
I can repair parts of that.
Well, that's the point. There are none, and I'll be honest with you. I looked at this years ago, and it was on the list way back. And, now there is, because this building was built in two parts, one upper and one lower. There is a sub panel, and that would be the next picture. So there's a brother or sister to that particular panel that's downstairs here when this building was built in 1960. They were able to find one that kind of matched the first one.
Wow. Is it running the
Everything is
standard
operating
electric
on, everything is operating on that. The issue is, like Mark says, if that thing went, so my HVAC guy says, Don, no heat, no school, no power, no school.
Right.
Right, and so we did lose power not long ago, and Mark asked me, he says, well, Don, can I put a generator here? Well, I have to put a transfer switch into these old pieces of equipment. I'm not touching them. If I get into that thing and there's no power in here and you don't have school, I suspect I'd be hanging from the highest yard.
Don, how long is it gonna take to get a replacement for that
Okay,
panel if it
so
breaks?
interesting question. At one point, they were more or less available. Right now, I asked my electrical contractor who did dig into the answer to that question. It's about 30 weeks. There's nothing there's nothing presently on
No
the
school
shelf.
for a year.
There's nothing presently on the shelf that we can buy and have put in like next week. So it's a factory order. It's about 30 weeks.
But we couldn't even get a new one if people approved a new one because we can't touch it because of the asbestos.
Well, this particular one, I don't have an asbestos issue unless there is inside that I'm unaware of, because I'm not,
Do you
I
know
haven't
how long
opened.
it would be like to install it? Has anybody
Um,
ever given you
Well,
install
the
it?
answer to that is, it could be, you know, it's less than a week. You know, it could be a couple, few days. It depends on how much pressure is put on. They could work 24 hours a day. Eversource would have to be included because the power would have to be shut off outside. We'd have to safely take this one out, put something else in, and then, you know, move the power back over.
Is
So
there a
what
way to
happens-
inspect them?
I'm sorry?
Is there a way to inspect it?
Well, the
to
answer to
make
your
sure?
question is, there is, but I'm not opening it.
No, not you, but somebody who,
Nobody that I've had here is willing to.
So if it happens,
Open
then
it,
it's
so
like,
nobody's
Well,
opened it.
no, nobody I've had here is willing to take the risk to take that, to take any part of it off, the way it says.
If it fails on Halloween, your school is closed for the rest of the year.
You know,
right, so like where would we go? Is there a backup plan?
Yeah,
So,
what is the?
That was
plan?
my question, sorry.
so.
If it should fail like right now, let's just say everything just shut down.
Yep.
Mhm.
Where would we go?
That's, you know, one of the things that, as we're going through this project, is becoming apparent is that we need to build backup plans for if it was this school, if it was Burnham School, if it was WPS, you know, where those kids would go. And so that's something that we're currently working on right now. So there's two parts. There's the one where the kid's gonna go, right, and teachers and how do we continue education, because our other schools can't just easily accommodate a whole school coming over out of the blue. Second piece of that is we also would have to be able to have a financial backup plan to be able to free up funds to deal with these things. You know, that would be like an unexpected landmine blowing up financially for us, and we'd have to be able to quickly.
So we don't
Use
have a
funds.
plan in place already?
We,
what you're saying?
we don't have one already because we're just, again, starting to
Just
take a look
digging
at,
into things.
at these this panel thing literally just came to light a few weeks ago about the age of this panel,
The time of the replacement.
and the timing of the replacement, and so that's when all of a sudden, you know, we had that aha moment, and said, if this is gonna mean that we have to close school for, you know, the better part of a year, you know, we have to have a plan of where the kids are gonna go, so, that's.
And what year is this? Wait, is this 1960 or older?
This panel,
What is this?
Sometime in the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, I'll figure that.
And I'm sorry for my naivete, but the question here, we can't be preventative because it's a tax people don't want to pay the taxes, is that what we're
I
doing?
didn't.
Yeah, but what, like, why wouldn't we be preventative? We know it's gonna shut
I don't
down.
know.
We have-
I suspect you pay plenty of
I know, I
taxes.
genuinely don't know, is it because if the school's gonna shut down for a year, isn't it more cost effective to be preventative, or does that require a budget? I don't know, what
Like
is
you
it?
said, I think it just came all to light,
We-
but I do have a question though.
We are
Well, if you
gonna
do
get
have
to
to replace the panel, what about all the
Not
other
tonight.
electrical throughout the entire building?
so, and again, that's one of the things that, you know, at the end, I think is worth talking about, but that's a really good question, right, because not only all of the other electrical in the school, right, and at that point, probably a generator would make sense, but there's also a synergistic effect between a lot of our components, because we don't just have electrical as in its own little electrical bucket, but that also drives a lot of our water-based, you know, things, our pumps and that kind of thing, so having the ability to work, you know, and repair and improve both of those at the same time makes a lot of sense, right? Otherwise, we're gonna be in the same kind of predicament, saying, okay, we're gonna try to fix this one piece, but we can't do the other stuff because we're hitting roadblocks on these other systems. So as we look at this, we have to also look at this, I think, in a comprehensive nature and saying, what do we wanna do to address all of our mechanical systems? Because you kind of design them together the same way that maybe your cell phone designs the hardware and the software to work together, right? That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, because if you just change that, everything that it's plugging into is all outdated and probably needs to be.
It's
have
all
to
up to
update
code.
or
At
is
the
that-
moment, the school,
But
you know, the
age.
well, the answer to your question is yes, and
And
there
will
are
that
needs
be-
for more, and there are needs to change various things like this. you know.
Right, and so like, that's the funny, like, that's what I'm kind of asking, like, if you were to replace the panel, like, okay, we replace the panel, but would you also wanna replace all the other electrical, or are you just gonna wait until that fails
Well,
and
the
then have to
answer
replace
to
it?
your question is yes, we would like to.
But it's a lot.
Well, it will be, but if that failed tomorrow, that would be the number one priority. We would
And then
be
you'd have to-
replacing that and connect it to what we have presently and then deal with, well, how are we gonna handle the rest of it?
We'll actually get eventually to a question of how to solve these problems.
Right.
But we'll be here all night tonight if we don't get through the list of what the challenges are that we have to deal
So
with.
the discussion about electrical outlets, that hit the electrical there. So in our classrooms, you'll see various types. These are all various wall-mounted electrical outlets. This happens to be in the IT
Those are
room where that,
wide,
where
those are
that-
like a dryer.
Yeah, right.
yeah, exactly.
That's a dryer, okay,
It looks like
yeah.
And then
similar.
the
That's
outlet,
a, yeah, that's a 220.
many of the classrooms have these strips, like this classroom does. No, it's not this room. And the reason for that is because there wasn't enough outlets put in the rooms to begin with, so they've extended them by doing that. They do meet code,
Is there any cloth wiring?
clock wiring.
Cloth wiring?
Oh, clock, no, not that, I have
It's
not
old
come,
enough.
no, you're not wrong, I have not come across them.
Okay.
I have not come across them. The circuits, here's another example, here's a classroom with another,
It's like this.
the whole district is much like this. The buildings were older, it's just like an older house, there was only an outlet here, an outlet there, and an outlet there, and they extended it by doing these surface mounted outlets.
And, yeah, and speaking of surface mounted electrical, you also see in a lot of our buildings, surface mounted, conduit and also plumbing fixes too, because we don't want to go to the walls and
Right.
disturb possible lead paint or asbestos and have to have an abatement project. So you'll see a lot of that as we go through some of these pictures in here and then elsewhere.
The older lighting, and this particular room, I was able to throw, change the lights out to these LEDs, but rooms like this, where they're pendant lightings, I can't disturb everything up there to remove this. So I'm trying to figure out how to swap that over to LED. I could put LED bulbs in it, but it doesn't solve the problem of the real issue. Pick the next one, the lighting there, same thing, different type of light. They're on pieces, in various locations where we don't want to disturb what they're mounted to.
And then we also have a number of buildings where they have like halogen tubes too, which are being phased out, right? So eventually you won't even be able to replace those, so you'll have to go to LED because you won't be able to get the bulbs.
That is true. There's another example of one of our air ducts. Air conditioning is accomplished in all of our elementary schools through window units. You've seen them here. And to your point, there's no filter that's of any substance there.
These provide some comfort, don't get us wrong,
They
right? But they don't do a great job of removing the moisture, so like that's still problematic in a lot of our buildings. Some days, especially the cooler air will collect along the floor and it gets slippery as that condenses, and so that's one thing to be aware of. And then also, this isn't like a home, like this would be fine on a home, but this is essentially a commercial building, so to speak, right? And so, having a more robust, integrated school-wide system would make a lot more sense in this application.
There are areas in the buildings that don't have any such cooling. The front offices in this particular building do not.
What does the gym have?
It doesn't have.
Oh, it doesn't have AC? No. Oh.
Yeah, even for the end of the year for the celebrations.
That's all that Allison has to pull air. And only when she opens the window in the copy room there
And has
to
her
pull
say.
fresh air in. All of the special ed rooms, which tend to, in our schools, be in closets and things like that. This particular one has nothing. It's just got a window. I couldn't even find a duct in there.
And then here you can see a couple of examples of that surface plumbing, right? And one of the things that's problematic with this first and foremost, I think it's a travesty that special ed would ever be living in a closet in the first place. Beyond that, the ventilation is poor. We had a teacher in one of the older buildings, not this one, who passed out last year in the spring because it was so hot in the room where she was delivering instruction. We had to call an ambulance. And I don't think that we should be subjecting our employees to these conditions either. I mean, it's not just our kids with a big ball, but also people who work here as well.
If we moved outside, we've got various traffic patterns that introduce buses and parents at the same time. You guys are familiar with this one. And you can show the next one, and that's the lot across the street, the school. Remember Megan, she used to put her cape on and walk the kids, or stop traffic, so she called. This is the teacher's parking lot. This is interesting. In order to get them here, we have to park them behind each other. And that's relatively new. I think I put that there in the last 8 years or so.
It's ironic that 8 years is relatively new.
Yes, no, I agree with that statement. Our school's exterior have many concrete. That's the walkway from the parking lot across the street. That's where Megan used to stand with the state trooper. Yeah.
Yeah, because people don't stop.
Yeah, no,
They
I
actually just go flying past.
Yeah, I was talking to one day, he literally like jumped in front of like a
Yeah.
speeding truck.
So you've been here also.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Our exteriors, I've been attacking these stairs for years, trying to keep them from rust. And they put these steel bullnoses on them. This one's actually in pretty decent shape. The other schools have broken off, and I'm like a dentist. I keep going in there and fixing a piece at a time every year. And I've got way too much money invested in them. We should be changing them. We should take them out and replace them. There are various steel railings that are safety railings for all of our students and occupants. And what's happening is they're all embedded in the concrete, and they're all rusting out pretty good. These have held up a little. Some of the other schools have rusted completely out. Stairways. You've seen these. This is off the library. Again, this is beyond something that my maintenance people can do. We can't change this. I can't break these up and replace this. Rust. This one's pretty interesting. That's the bottom of the window the library's right here. So that's the end of the hall, the exit going outside.
So they replaced all of.
They replaced all the classroom windows, but not there's a few, like that hallway going down where the stairwells are. Yeah, they did the easy ones and left some of the hard ones, yeah.
Gotcha, so it wasn't all of them.
But, and that's a running theme, right? They did the easy ones, not the hard ones. I think, one of the things that I can conclude in my short time here is that a lot of the low-hanging fruit has been picked. We've done a lot of the easy things. We've done a lot of the things we can get to, the things that are inexpensive, the things that don't require environmental remediation. Now we're at the point where there's some big ones. They're expensive, they're hard to do, and so that's why I think it makes sense to educate the community and engage in these conversations because, again, we have done our best on things we could do, but now I think it's time to have get the adults in the room and have a grown-up conversation about what do we do now.
In my office, there's many reports in the past of attempts to have these kind of meetings with, many years ago, through the years, from 1960 on. And they have a theme that the schools weren't kept as well as they could be at the time. So what the people in charge singled out was, well, you're not keeping it clean and you're not doing your maintenance. When I came here 15 years ago, Dr. Storm hired me. He says, Don, I want you to be a hands-on facility guy. I want to see you fixing things. And, our select people aren't happy with the way we're handling, we're taking care of their buildings. I want you to fix them up, and the district has been good. They've given us the money, and we've, like Mark says, we've done what we could. What the problem is, the things that are in our way of doing any more. That's what the real problem is here. All of our schools have cracked sidewalks and things. These are projects that are bigger than what we can do. We need to, this is an outside project. We need to consider our ADA friends during our upgrades and our repairs, this is going into a classroom. That's the only way to get into that classroom. And what you don't see is my custodian made a plywood ramp, and he puts it there when they need it. He hides it. We've accommodated various other people. The exterior of this particular building down in the back, this is the back of the gymnasium. Back in 2013, we found that this particular wall, so this wall, as a matter of fact, this addition is all built much the same. It's got this exterior glazed brick, and then a block like you see here. In the gymnasium, the inside has a brick, so it's a brick, a block, a brick, and they're all held together with a small aluminum tie. When the bricklayers laid it, they put a tie in every now and then to hold the outside wall to the inside wall to the inside wall. And what we found was this wall was bowing. And the reason it was bowing was because years ago, they let the roof go so bad that water had gotten in between them and rusted them off. So
Is there mold?
is there mold? There is growing right there, but I have not visually seen any mold in this school. Now, there are people who could smell it. I can't smell things. This is here to hold my glasses up. I can't smell mold. But there are various people I bring through the schools who say, "Oh, I smell mold." I can't show you any.
Right, but if
Most of
water
those-
was going down there, how wouldn't there be mold?
Well, you'd have to open that wall up to find the answer to that
And nobody
question.
did.
We're talking about the ADA compliance. I don't see a picture of it here, but you all came down and you all leave that staircase, right?
Which is awful.
Yeah, I
It's
think I have
awful.
one
It's
in.
awful.
And you'll notice that the risers are too short, right? And so stairs are a funny thing, right? You don't notice that it's the wrong size until you notice it's the wrong size. And that staircase, because of the design of it, is a notorious trip and fall hazard, particularly for older visitors who might be coming here for grandparents' day or that type of thing. If they're not used to navigating a staircase that's not built to spec, built to code, that could be, a real issue for folks. So that staircase is one of those things that really keeps me up at night thinking about, I hope someone doesn't fall down that stairwell.
It is down in the architecturals, but it's back to that gym wall. It has been fixed so that it's not gonna fall or anything like that, so there is I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
I just wonder
It's
if
not gonna
this is
collapse
the
on
same
it.
No,
as
it was-
Washington Primary School, where sometimes when you open up something, you can't because of
Correct.
asbestos.
That is-
So that could be another reason why you wanna be able to investigate deeper, but it becomes a bigger issue because it's not just the wall, it's the asbestos, and then you have to close down the school for abatement issues, and so that becomes a whole other issue.
Correct, like the young lady here said, have I checked the septic lines? I can't, I'd have to break through that asbestos floor to get to them.
So you're
No,
picking
no,
the
so-
easier of the two by maintaining what you can
Absolutely.
without having to excavate the whole building.
That's-
See, it gets even worse than that, because you can't work on asbestos. Half the size of that television screen.
No.
You need to have no
Smaller.
children under the age of 18 in the
Right.
building.
Right, yeah.
So you, in essence, anytime you work on that
Do you know
stuff,
where
the
all
building
the
must be
asbestos is in the
vacated
building?
of children.
Or is it
The
only
answer to your
is it
question is
exterior, is it
yes,
interior, is it floor?
I do.
Oh, okay, oh, great.
No, and the reason I do is because I started by saying they were required by the state to have every 6-month inspections and every 3 years a full. And so over the years, we keep adding to, we keep adding to this. So we have a third party who comes in here, they're contracted to come and they look at every component in the building. And they continue to test things that they hadn't tested in the past. And they would add
Have things on.
various
just
things
gets
on. They have
longer.
also identified a number of things that are non-asbestos, and but based on their testing, so they keep a list of those things, so we
Is
go
this-
back and do it again.
Is there like a reading for asbestos, like in the air as well, or no? Cause could somebody be disturbing it and not even know it?
Well, that can happen, yeah, and that's what's called friable, so it would have to be a dust almost to be able to get into the air. This is a solid material, and that's why they manage it by just
Leaving it
inspecting it. Well, we leave it alone, but we inspect it, and then when we find it damaged to the point where you just stated, then we have to do something about it, and we do. And the district has gone through the schools, and they have removed a lot of it, but there's still a lot there through the years.
A friable is like if you were to go like this and,
Right.
you know, kind of flake it off and it would be in the air, like that's when it becomes dangerous.
Right.
Right, other than that, it's like a glue almost. That's what it looks like right there.
Well, what you're seeing here is, so you're not wrong. The boards in this particular one, behind this whiteboard is a blackboard, and it's typically glued on with a black, they call it a glue dab, right? Those adhesives have asbestos in them. That's why all these boards continue to stay. Nobody takes them off.
But,
That's
and-
why, and we'll show some of
but
it.
then you get to these like glacial layers of things just keep getting added on, right? So we have a blackboard, a slate board with a whiteboard on top of this, with an interactive whiteboard on top of that, more technology on top of that, right? So it keeps like, you know, piling out in these like,
It's one of my pet
these
peeves.
layers,
Yeah.
We actually, when we did the project at the high school, we actually took a 4x8 bulletin board off the wall that had asbestos mastic behind it. The whole area had to be tented. All the workers had to wear Tyvek suits with respirators. You had to maintain a negative pressure on it so that the air, or they were positive, a negative pressure so it didn't blow air into the building. And then that bulletin, that process to remove that 4x8 bulletin board cost $4,000 for one 4x8 board. Can you imagine if you had to remove 20,000 square feet of ceilings?
you know, and when we put up these smart boards, like the one behind this one, I said, Don, why did you not take the boards off? And he said, you know, trust me, I wanted to, like, I don't like the way this looks either, I think it looks ridiculous, but I didn't want to disrupt, you know, the materials below, so, you know, this is kind of what we've inherited here.
So, carpeting. This carpet is probably early '90s. It's throughout the entire district. We'd love to change the carpet. That's what I said. We'd love to make more improvements, but we have problems like this. The carpet was put over an asbestos tile, and for us to pull up the carpet, we'd also pull up tiles in some
How old
areas.
is the carpet?
I'm figuring early '90s.
And none of the carpet can be changed at all.
Well, some can, where there's no asbestos underneath it. It could all be changed if we have an abatement project to remove the hazards below it.
Back when?
Or, cause we probably shouldn't have carpets in the school anymore, right, like, cause of dust.
Well,
and-
I agree with that, but
Right.
this is how
I was
other
asking.
people
Well,
decide.
actually, no, because what we've done at the middle high school and what the town of Roxbury did in town hall is they put in a resilient flooring that has got a rubber base
Better for your,
and it is basically a nylon carpet. And what that does is it keeps all of that dust. In the mall, when they were walking through the mall at the high school, when it was tile, the dust was going up above the heads of the students. It was all in their breathing path.
okay.
When we put the carpet in, it keeps it within 2 to 3 inches of the floor. So it remains down there, and it's actually a lot better for you to have the carpet in the
And
school.
then it's just having it cleaned,
That particular carpet is a hospital grade, that's.
that makes sense,
Yeah.
okay,
That's what it is.
thank
But
you.
we couldn't even do that, because you can't.
Well,
but
we can if we remove the
Yeah, yeah,
hazards along with it. The answer is yeah. There are places in the district, in New Burnham, believe it or not, the wood floors of the old school never had tile put on them. They just have carpet, we can do those. This one has tile under it, and why they stopped short, I don't know. You know, maybe an aesthetic, they thought it was, looked good, I don't know.
But if we don't remove the tile, would we be able to put something else down? That
Well, the
would be
problem is
better.
pulling this up to put something down.
Doesn't stay playground.
Right, and pulling it up pulls some of the loose tiles that were underneath it along with it, and then exposes what's glued those tiles down, which is the glue
Right,
dabs.
which
So
is
we
the
got
problem.
glue dab,
Yeah.
you got tile. Typical classroom, you're in one now. Many of our walls and built-in storage areas, well, that's the built-in, hit the storage there. This one's pretty cool, I saw this one the other day. I guess we ran out of space in the gym. And then we'll show more floors and tiles. I guess you get the picture, I almost don't even wanna show them to you anymore. So this is interesting, and this kind of. All right. So when you see a picture like this, you look down and it's clean. It looks pleasant, but it's asbestos tile floor. I'm not sure if this particular wall product is or not. I'd have to go look. We've hidden the ceiling. Years ago, we put a drop ceiling that hides the other ceiling that's above it. That's what I mean by trying to improve these things. We have all these other things in the way of us improving them any better. But, to the naked eye, it looks clean, There's just more of that. We could go down. We're into the restroom. Here's one where we've got 3 of them. Yeah, right. We'll go into the restrooms. Our restroom fixtures,
Are ancient.
Yeah, you've noticed them.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, they were changed. Look, they used to go to the floor, So they were changed. I suspect that was in 1990. Notice how there's no ADA.
Right, but they didn't wanna redo the floor?
They didn't replace the floor?
It's
We
got
just
it.
left it like
so
that?
so in here, some of the ceramic tile and the grout that holds it is hot for asbestos. So I'm gonna figure that particular floor is probably one of them. Yeah, I know. My friend over there.
Is there a list that's like a lot less for things that are okay?
Well,
That's good about this.
What's good about this?
we'll keep
What I
going.
will say
Notice
is
the
that
ADA.
I just feel like I need to give Don a shout out because I think
He's doing
that,
amazing.
if you look at all 3 of the elementary schools, and I said this at the Washington Primary School, meetings that, considering how difficult it is, right, to tap into everything and to fix it, and your hands are tied. Don's done an amazing job of trying to keep the schools as clean and safe as possible, and he is. So it's not easy to
I
have to
appreciate
deal with the
that.
buildings
Thank
and all of the limitations that you have, and still make it look like an amazing learning environment.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and then Don was saying, like, the ADA compliance here, so the sinks, are too high, it's hard to rotate a chair around, you should have knee guards, there's a lot of problems that we have here with ADA compliance with the current configuration
The
as well.
next one, so that was restroom. Did you hit the fixture one? And then yeah. They left that one alone.
So that's what they,
Look at that heater.
Yeah.
That's typical.
So that's the boys' room, right? You figured that out.
But is that the radiator that you can't take out, correct?
I to be honest with you, Barbara Henry made me fix that
Yeah.
like 10
This
years
is that
ago.
lead paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is okay. So what Jen is saying is that so the age of these schools has put lead paint at the base of all the materials. So through the years they've painted over it. And what she's saying is I can't take a sander and sand all that off.
Yeah, you can only paint over.
Yeah, right.
It's not just add layers.
Right. Yes.
See, if we kept the lead paint, it would have solved the mold problem because it's toxic to mold.
There you go.
Is there a way to cover that, Eric? I'm thinking little kids with their little hands might get a little curious.
Oh.
Is there a way to cover it, like, at least for safety purposes?
You know what? I tried to find new ones that fit there, and I can't. I could have them made, but I can't
Just something
find
just to cover
new
so they don't
ones.
get like.
Sharp metal. What bathroom is this?
Right down the hall on the
Oh.
left, the boys.
Oh, so the kids use this?
Yeah.
Sorry, just as there's the rust that makes me nervous.
but, and part of this obviously, could be kid missing, right? Like,
Absolutely.
it's not all that, right? Oftentimes in bathrooms like this, the moisture level is super high, so even the partitions quickly rust out, and so you'll see, you know, in these types of restrooms that don't have adequate airflow, which I talked about earlier, you know, you do run into these problems. So it might be from, you know, urine, but it probably more likely is actually just the moisture in the bathroom.
That is true. The low flow issue.
That's like China.
Yeah,
Have you ever
now,
gone
now
China? They have
that,
toilets
we,
in the
we
ground.
showed you the two urinals and then the sinks and said that,
And you're
now
in
this is
the
a
house.
large bathroom. You know, you go up there, it's a
I was like,
large
where's the
bathroom,
toilet?
but you can't get it won't accommodate a handy.
And
And
is
then
that,
I can't change that toilet to a low flow, cause,
Don, is that the only stall?
in that particular bathroom.
So obviously, someone in a wheelchair cannot use the urinals, they can't get in here, so now they need to go use a different restroom.
In this
Take the elevator to a
particular,
different one.
yeah, in this particular building, I think the nurses, the front office has a ADA compliant
Yeah.
toilet, yeah. And the same is true in WP, there's one in the front main hallway.
But I mean, again,
No,
it pains me to think
Yeah.
that a non-disabled child can go to the bathroom and go back to class.
Right.
Now, if I'm in a wheelchair, I have to go in an elevator, go upstairs, go to another place in the office. Hopefully, the doors are easy enough to get into. Go to the bathroom, come out of all that, come back down the elevator. Like,
That's terrible.
why should that child miss so much more class time than their non-disabled?
How would that be the code?
Well, that.
Well, actually, ADA is gradated based on the age of the building, so there are only certain things you have to
Right.
do unless you have a construction project that's like 15 or 20% of the value of the building. It's a complicated law.
Yeah, when it's especially kids.
So we all know that we had an ADA child here who's no longer with us, but we made accommodations for her.
Yeah.
We had to literally make accommodations, but they weren't there. You know, we had, and then those accommodations helped her to change her clothing when it was soiled, and there was a nurse's table that somebody had to pick up the child and, you know, themselves to do that. Now, I didn't go into that here because that's another issue,
Yeah, but
that's use of the building more than it is the facility itself.
when we design new buildings for children, we would put mechanical lifts to help raise the child up for changing, because we do have students who, you know, maybe 100 pounds that need to be, have diaper changes or that type of thing if they're disabled. And so dealing with, you know, a child that weighs that much, you know, maybe they have CP and low motor control, it's very difficult for aides and paraprofessionals to move those children around. And so we have a lot of workplace injuries or people who will just say, I don't want to take that job because I can't physically do that. Or people will do it for a short period of time and then say, hey, can I either do something else or I'm just gonna have to resign because physically this is too taxing. So, you know, those are some of the other issues that we face with trying to meet the needs of both the children, but also the people who support the kids.
And we kind of got ahead of ourselves because the next slides are ADA.
Yeah, this is one of them.
Oh, okay. And this is right here in the classroom. I mean, you know, a student who's disabled couldn't get to that sink.
Right, right, because the chair would butt up against
Nobody
it.
could get, we saw the toilet, you know. And that's in the upper front office. That's where the teachers and whoever's in the front office, and there's a refrigerator over here. It's so narrow, you can barely get into the microwave.
And I guess the other side of that too, right, is not just thinking about children who are disabled, we could also have
Correct,
disabled
right.
adults working in our space, right?
So many of the windows, this particular school had windows replaced, and they're not bad. We saw a couple that they didn't get to, but in some of the other schools like Burnham, they're very heavy, and they're large and very heavy. And in WP, they're crank out, and so a lot of teachers and others have a hard time opening them to get the fresh air, to go through the ductwork, and then closing them every night and things like that. There was a couple areas in this school that didn't get changed. All the windows going up and down the connector here haven't been changed, and the ones off the backside of the library haven't been changed either. The doors in this particular school have mortise type hinges. So this particular, So I'm 65 years old. That Emhart burned down when I was like 9 years old. I lived in New Britain where it burned.
Do we have replacement parts for that?
Well, it works fine. However, we have invested heavily in our security over the last few years, and my friend Mary here will tell me doors now.
I want them to all close and lock
Right.
every time.
And they do. But we spend a lot of money one at a time trying to make repairs on these. And I don't know if you're aware, but
Is it cheaper to repair it than to just replace the door?
this
I mean, an
particular
old
door
piece
was
like that
replaced. This
seems like
particular
that would
door
be more
was
expensive and
replaced.
more cost. That
So-
would not be cost effective.
So in what was it, 2013, the repairs project replaced the door and put a similar old mortise back in it. I mean, it's a good lock, but it's old.
I'm just
Um,
wondering, like, sometimes
the
it
answer to
seems
the question
like
is
we're
kinda-
fixing
is-
things instead of
it- there's-
replacing something.
yeah,
The
there's-
question is where,
It is cheaper to fix it. And there's so many of them.
but is it time consuming, like, to try to
Well,
find the parts to fix
absolutely
it?
it is, absolutely, and a third party has to do it a lot of times. My maintenance department isn't as well schooled on that mortise lock as they are to a rim cylinder or something like that.
And today, we'd also wanna replace them with, safety doors that are built, to repel a potential intruder. And so now you're talking thousands and thousands per door. Again, it's not like just running out to Home Depot and grabbing one for sure.
So if you notice this particular one, see that thumb knob? Back, when we first started really securing our district, those weren't there. So teachers had to either lock or unlock the door with a key. And in order to do that, they had to be outside to do it, or get outside. So after Newtown, I came through and found out that this old lock mortise set had the ability to be drilled into and put this thumb screw on the inside so that they could close the door quickly and lock it from the inside without a key having to go outside.
That's a great thing.
So we did.
But
make
do any of the
improvements
doors
to it.
automatically lock?
No. Well,
Because people
hang
make
on,
mistakes.
hang on. The exterior doors do. Right.
Right, but I mean all the classroom doors.
No, that's why.
Like they should automatically close and lock. A lot of schools, that's how they do it now.
I think they have to keep them locked.
Yes.
Right, but my point is,
Classroom
people make
function.
mistakes
Yeah,
and they forget to lock
Yeah,
them.
right.
but I mean, it's locked all day, like you can get in and out from the inside, but it's locked from the
That is
outside.
correct.
The outside of the school, yeah, I
No,
know,
the
I
outside-
mean,
No.
No, outside the
the
classroom.
classroom,
Yeah,
This door here.
yeah,
So,
like if I go to a
if you
classroom,
notice,
the door's
many
closed,
of,
I can't get in.
many of them have wood chocks to hold them on. What you're saying, what she's saying is that they should have a magnetic hold open here. So if the fire alarm went off, the door would close automatically.
Mhm.
And it wouldn't be held open by a chock. So yeah, a more modern school would have a combination of that. Now, the fire marshals hammer me every time they come through here and see wood chops. And I get rid of them all the time and they keep coming back. I don't know, I don't have a wood shop here, so.
probably because there's no air, so they wanna.
I'm sure you're right.
That's so daunting.
Where were we? Morris's, blackboards, okay. So this IT room, it used to be a classroom and, well, they couldn't take the blackboard off the wall because they couldn't remove the asbestos, so they left it there. And this is in many of our classrooms, and Mark showed you.
Putting them to sleep now.
I'm sorry.
You do that.
Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. So yeah, this is one of my pet peeves. Look at, like Mark says, this is the old blackboard, the wooden. Then they put the smart board on. The whiteboard, and then the smart board on top of that. Believe me, I feel the same. And these are mostly because of the hazards. So this we keep seeing the electrical issue, the wiring issue. That should all be fixed. The original, this particular building has original, original wooden clapboard. And I don't think that's the right picture. That's a beauty right there. That one's mounted right to the platform, that's a great one. So hit the original wooden, yep, there we go. So you're familiar with the building up in the corner. So the wooden clapboards on these buildings are in need of replacement. But there's a lot of paint on there and it really looks good. I painted it just recently too because it's all I can do. So the EPA won't allow us to sand or scrape in a classroom any more than 6 square feet per classroom. So that's why we just clean and repaint them. Outside, we can only scrape or sand 20 square feet on an exterior. So when you end up with a situation like this, I mean, from this distance, it looks fine, but I think I've got some pictures that show the trim and other pieces of it that are failing, you know, like this.
You can't replace that.
Well, I'd have to replace it. I couldn't fix it. So there are ways, like in Burnham, we were able to cut it out. We had somebody, an abatement person, cut out a piece of it. And then the carpenters were able to fabricate a piece that looked just like it and then paint it over. So we can do something like that. But what I'm trying to show is that the whole building needs to be done, not just this one corner.
Yeah.
You know, this is new, by the way. It only just came up in the last year or so. Oh, data racks. So our IT, there's our data rack in the closet around the corner. And this particular one has cooling. We put a window unit in there. Over in WP, it's in the middle of the building. We can't cool it. We have to have the door open. And at one point, I gotta think back. Only one wire or a couple wires ran into one piece here, and then after all these years, now we have this. And our security, all the orange wire, that's all our door security and our card reader stuff and our cameras. And the yellow and blue stuff is all the IT stuff.
That's our supply closet too, by the way, that
It
like
is.
teachers go in to get paper and pencils and we're right next to all those wires and things.
Isn't that like a fire hazard?
Well,
Not really, it
the answer,
doesn't look like it, it looks fine.
yeah. Well, in terms of its power, it's not a lot of power in there, you know, to create a fire. But if you were in there during a fire, I think the answer would be yeah, you'd be.
But that's to cook,
You know, what's that?
that's to cook.
See, when you separate the systems and you look at the electrical, it is. When you look at the, yeah. So this is the access to the attic above that space there. It's in a closet about yay big. Oh, I'm sorry. It's up in this closet, just so you know that they wouldn't allow you to build a school like this anymore. That school has a wide open attic from end to end. Typically, it should be fire blocked, so there'd be they'd compartmentalize it. So they'd build walls up there that were fire rated. Okay, storage space is non-existent in this school. That hallway, there's my friend.
For our elevator?
Yeah,
Oh, it's a book fair.
ADA, somebody asked me about the ADA.
Yeah.
No, this is the book fair, but typically it's the cafeteria tables that are here. They're stored there daily. Yeah, we saw the creative solution that one of the classrooms had. Oh, we saw that. But that's what happens here. You know, we have to find places creatively to put things. And the next one is just the same. We saw that already.
You
So
can
now
see
the-
when the school was built, they didn't have carpets and therefore no vacuums. It was all
There
rooms.
you go. Yeah.
And that's why you have no storage space.
So we have limited space in the basement, this particular basement. There's only one lower level in this school and it's below that older building. And this is a picture of the stairs going down to it. I'd be willing to bet if I tested that paint, I'd find something that lead or something. And there's the last one, that's the stairs going out the back here. That's an original foundation. Yeah. I mean, somebody's come in and put new stairs in there, yeah.
And Don, is the office.
Now, that's not compliant, you can bet on that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you wanna call it an office, but is the
Oh,
office space for the custodial staff in that basement?
yes, yes,
Really? No.
yes. He had an office in there, we brought him back up. He's now, in the teacher's lounge over there, but he's carved out a desk in the teacher's lounge there. Yeah. No, it's typical, what Marcus, well, the reason he asked that is because WPS is the same, and
We
Burnham
have a
is,
gun range in ours though.
Burnham is even the same, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a gun range.
Oh, yeah.
Still there.
That's our school.
Yeah.
That's where the custodial's, office is.
Oh my.
Yeah. So.
Take a gun to school?
Really good.
Yeah, it brings a whole new light. So basically what I'm trying to say is our school's full of many hazards, and I'm not gonna go through, we've already gone through. You know, it's asbestos, it's lead paint products, it's copper and lead in our piping. And we really need to make improvements so that we can improve the air quality and the water quality and the quality of life for everybody that's in here. On the horizon, the state is looking at our HVACs as a result of COVID, and right now the mandate is that we develop an analysis of the existing systems by January 1st, 2025. So that's the first step. The state legislators are looking at implementing a temperature range also into schools, 65 to 80.
Yeah.
Right. And they're considering gymnasiums or those types of areas having some different standard, but they have yet to implement those numbers and make them available. So in the future, the point is, these analyses are just to show people like you what you have, and at some point, get them to improve. We would like to improve the air quality in the school, but it's not a simple task. You'd want to tie all the systems together, the heating, the air conditioning, and just general fresh air. Up at the middle of high school, there's 2 times a year where we have free cooling, so to speak, spring and fall. We actually filter the air where there's no air conditioning on, there's no heating, but we have the ability to filter the air and run it through the system. We don't. This area here just has what I showed. You open the window and we've got an exhauster on the roof and the air passes through. So the state is moving towards implementing standards, and we're going to have to get there also. The EPA is also implementing standards on lead and copper. I'm required, because we have public water supplies in each of the school systems, I'm going to be required in the next year to inventory those components to identify what components, whether it's lead, galvanized, brass, etc., in the piping system. And that effort is an effort to eliminate it from the water systems throughout the entire country, not just here.
That's the drinkable water, not just like the waste.
Potable water, yeah,
Potable
drinkable water, yes, right. So our schools, I could tell you this, I haven't come across any lead pipe, any lead fixtures in our schools. What we do have is copper piping with solder that is lead solder. Now, we meet all of our state water requirements and don't have an issue, but I can't tell you that we'd always be at 0, because that's where it's heading. The EPA will at some point implement 0. Right now it is 0 lead, however, they give a small parts per million threshold because of things like what we have.
And then nationally, the NEA, which is the largest teachers union, and the AFT, which typically represents urban educators, they've made workplace safety one of their #1 issues. And so they're gonna continue to push for air quality standards, temperature standards in their schools. I think, COVID certainly was a lightning rod in that effort, but, they continue to really push for those things, so that they have healthy and safe places to work. And they're also trying to, impress upon, politicians, the importance of maybe even, extending OSHA requirements to schools, which currently they don't. And so, there's a lot of effort, and advocacy around improving workspaces for educators. So, Connecticut has their things, the federal government has their pieces, but, also that's another piece that's, at work as well, that we wanna be out and aware of and thinking strategically about, so that we're prepared.
Absolutely. Well, that completes my portion. Anybody have anything else?
Don, we talked about this in Washington, so I think I understand why it's not on here, but I've gotten questions about it from parents, specifically regarding the kitchen. In Washington, they've got the gymnasium and the cafeteria here, we call it the gym and cafetorium, because we do all that together. But can you explain a bit why the kitchen's not included in this part? And
So I was trying to keep my focus on the facility itself, the needs of the hazards in the way of us making improvements to the facility. That's on the gray line of where I wanted to look at when we look at the spaces, when we look at the special ed spaces and the kitchen spaces and the learning spaces. I'm trying to stick to the windows, the walls, the heating system and things like that.
Right, so.
I just tried to draw a line.
presumably the hazards that are in the
But
rest of
you're
the
not
building
wrong.
would be there.
You are not wrong. Each one of our schools do not have code compliant kitchens that would be able to serve food. They do not. And that's, when I came here, I disabled most of the equipment because I didn't want them to be using it in there.
And there's a lot of moving parts to this conversation, so we tried to break it down. That's why tonight we tried to say, let's draw a fence around facilities and we'll focus on that. Next time we meet, if you come back out, which we hope to do, we talk about safety and security. Then we'll talk about programs, and I think that's where we talk about educational programs. To me, food services would also then fit as one of the programs that we would like to offer. I'll speak my own truth. I would love to have a hot lunch program for kids.
Absolutely.
I love to cook. I have kids myself, and I know how important nutrition is and high quality food. And I think that that would be something that we'd want to talk about on that night. And so those are some previews of coming attractions, but we tried to take on only a biteable chunk. I mean, we're already an hour and a half in, so I wanted to make sure that we weren't overwhelming people with all these things all at the same time either.
I'm sorry.
For, to be able to get to these pictures in this document, is that open to us and provided to us?
Yes, so what we'll add is a tab on our website for primary priorities, and we'll have links out to the videos of these, which will also be on YouTube, and all the documents, so you can go in and take a look at this again. You may want to spend some more time looking at the pictures, and so we'll host all that. Again, we're trying to be transparent, we're trying to be honest. I'm not here to BS you. I want people to see and feel and know what we're dealing with, so that we can make the best educated decision as a community in terms of what we want to do. We spent a lot of time improving our secondary spaces, and they're amazing. And I think it's time to also give that same experience to the elementary kids, and so I want to involve you all in the conversation.
You'll be able to see the other
Are
schools.
you gonna have, not like, but kind of like a suggestion box, just for thought processes, like
Yes.
that other people might have?
Yep, I'll
To try to,
I'll create like a digital one so that you can, again, just right in the same space, click that link, and then give feedback, suggestions, ideas.
Is like the dollar amount to fix all of this, like, very, very high, like it's probably more worth it, especially because all the schools have issues, to rebuild a whole new brand school, brand new school?
We don't know yet, we're still in the, let's look at, what the needs are first. After this year of kind of educating the community, we'll have to have a time we come together and say, well, so what are we gonna do next, right? And maybe that is to start to say, what would it cost to fix all these things? So it'd be hard to.
benefits
How,
of a
how
new
would you
school.
do that? I mean, you wouldn't be able to fix this school. No one could go to school if you're gonna fix it.
Well, you actually, you would have to make, you would literally have to have an alternative place to educate the children in any given school. You could renovate a school to new, you could bring it back to new, but then when you've got a school that was designed 100 years ago, a new version of it. You know, you don't have any spaces you might need or other things, so that's an issue you
Exactly.
look at. The other issue you have to recognize is that, you know, it's never an easy decision to ask people to spend money to deal with these things. And the mentality in these towns has always been the classic Yankee mentality of use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. And we're coming to the do without stage if we don't do anything. And so please tell everyone you know in town to come to these, because what we're trying to do as a board is we said we're gonna have to make decisions. And when we go to make decisions, if the community doesn't understand why we're making the decisions, and if the community doesn't have the ability to say what they want in terms of the decisions, they're gonna be lousy decisions and they're gonna be a no starter at the box. We put up to a vote probably 20 odd years ago to renovate all 3 elementary schools to new. And everyone wanted to renovate them to new. Then when it came down, here's the price, well, we don't wanna pay that.
Right.
And so we didn't do that. And then we had other opportunities where we didn't go for a comprehensive solution. And so, you know, there's a lot of reasons why we're in the position we're in, but this board has said, we can't wait anymore. If that switchgear goes in this building, we have a major problem. That's gonna be a disruption. So the idea is we're trying to get to a solution, but we need to bring everybody along to get to that
And it
solution.
seems like there's just gonna be more and more requirements for each school to eventually have, and it's not going to work for here.
You know, and the other side of that too is that,
And is the state, like, so everything's like up to code, but is code good enough? Like, probably not.
You're asking a good question.
right, that's, to me, a low hurdle, right, that's the minimum amount, right? You can always
Right.
exceed that for sure. You know, the other thing that we have to think about is, you know, our buildings, I think we're at a lot of these are at the wear it out stage, and I think we've reached that in a lot of these. You know, and
I mean, it's okay to want a new school, I mean, look at all the other towns, Brookfield, they built a new elementary school, New Milford's built plenty of schools throughout the years, like, it's okay to want new, it's just getting everybody on board and understanding how each school is now becoming outdated beyond measure.
And I think it's getting people to understand the nature of the problem. Like, are literally people who will say, oh, Gosselin, you just want a new school, because that's what all educators want. We think you're lying to us, right? We don't believe it's really here. This is where we're saying, well, then come and see, look at the pictures, you know. Call
Asbestos
Don,
is
have him
not
go on a
gonna
tour,
mess with-
like, you know, get down in
Yeah.
the crawl spaces and check these things out, right? We have nothing to hide, right?
Right.
We just want good quality places for your kids to learn. And we have to get going on this, there's a sense of
It takes a
urgency,
while.
because it takes a long
That's
time,
what I'm saying.
right?
Like a
The
new school is
application,
like,
the financing, the planning,
12
the
years.
building, yeah, right? And so,
And is
No,
there
it's not-
grants,
it's
kids
not
are
that
not even
long.
gonna be a part of it.
are there
Right.
grants,
It's probably about 3 to 5, 3 to 5.
Yeah.
But
Is
it
there-
depends on,
is there grants to
Per-
replace certain
per
things
school.
like that are been outdated from years ago, or is there not?
yes, right, there are. Like right now, there's grant money that's available to make investments in your HVAC system.
But
We
when
would have to be strategic about that,
All
because
the
if we were
hazards of getting to HVAC.
to do that now,
And that's our
then
own
we
dish.
can't use it later on, right? So you have to kind of
Oh, okay, so
So,
okay.
pick that.
yeah,
I
if
know
we
they're
used it
having-
now, we wouldn't get the money if we built a new school in
Got
3
it.
years.
So
We
that's
wouldn't
huge,
get
that's
the
what people
money.
need to know though,
You have to go
that's a big
30
thing.
years before you get the money.
so I know we're having this meeting separated by the schools, right? Like, there's one at Burnham, one at Washington, one here. But we collaboratively all have to agree, right? Like, that's a decision that has to, like, isn't that the case?
Yeah, all three now.
Potentially, right? Like again. I
Which
think
I
we're-
don't agree with, but I'm just saying, like, if the decision is made, it actually has to be across all 3.
depending on what the decision is, right?
Um,
So that's, I think we still are in the process right now of figuring out what that decision might be. And then that might change the picture of what agreements, you know, have to be made, if it has to be all 3 or not. I mean, there's lots of variables that people could decide on, you know, but I think we have to start educating folks, starting using conversations, you know, we'll wrap all this up with one at the high school where people will come together and have to talk across town lines and start saying, here's what we think we need to go, guys.
I know a few years ago, the state was offering incentives to towns for regionalizing, things like their police departments and fire departments and stuff like that. Is there anything like that going on for the educational system?
So yeah, I mean, there's been intense pressure to regionalize, right? And I think you can look right in our backyard, you'll see that there's gonna be a new Region 20, right? And so I would also encourage people to have a really honest and sober discussion, and spend some time thinking about that too, right? Do we want to be at the risk of being another victim of regionalization, which is happening, that's the trend? You know, if we were to build, let's say, there's one single school in the district, we've almost sort of regionalized ourselves within the district and kept Region 12 rather than being folded into Brookfield or New Milford or somewhere else, right? That could happen, I don't know. There's pressure and there'll be ways to incentivize that and ways that they'll try to entice people to do that. They're not gonna force us to do it, but they'll come up with other ways to make it very attractive to towns to go that route.
Are they making it attractive for us to just regionalize us, like our elementary schools?
Actually, they did the reverse.
Of course.
They did the reverse because we have a 3-town region. That 3-town region has a regional plan. The regional plan calls for a K-5 school in each of the 3 towns. When we made an attempt a few years ago to change the regional plan so that you could have one school for the 3 towns, it was voted down in some towns by a substantial 10-to-1 margin. And so and there's a Supreme Court case, Region 12 versus the town of Bridgewater, in which the court decided you need the affirmative vote of each town in the region in order to change the regional plan. And so we found out that that's what we have to do. So this is a cooperative effort. We have to work together, our 3 towns. We have to figure out what we're going to do, and we have to decide how many schools we're going to build, where we're going to put them, and what we're going to do if we're going to build new schools as opposed to renovating. But we can't even get to that decision until we all understand what the problem is that we're dealing with. And then I think that there'll be options, and we'll have to figure it out, and we will do something that the 3 towns can live with. And that's.
And if you look across the state, there's a building boom, right? When you said, like, you know, there's nothing wrong wanting a new school and look at the towns that are doing it, that's not just in our neck of the woods, that's literally everywhere. You can go out to, you know, New London County, you name it, they're building schools everywhere, on the coast, up in the quiet corner. And the reason why I think a lot of towns are going that route is because it gives you an amazing hedge when people try to force regionalization and say, are you out of your mind? We just spent, you know, $50 million on this building. We're not gonna go back to the taxpayers now and walk away from this thing we just did. So I think a lot of folks are looking at that as an insurance policy to protect themselves from that consolidation. There's a lot of talk at the State House and amongst our superintendent groups about, you know, what that might look like if, you know, the state continues to go down that road. And so I think some folks are saying, hey, it's one strategy to get out ahead of it is, you know, own our own destiny rather than letting Hartford tell us what to do.
So will this whole recording be available so that we can share with other parents
Yes.
that who are not here and kind of spread the word? Because I think this is really important and there's not a lot of us from the school here. And yeah, this is a huge important conversation that I think more people need to be aware of.
And you should feel somewhat encouraged. We had a higher turnout tonight than we did at Washington, so that's good news, like, we're trending in a positive direction. But these will be available for people to consume. I know people have kids and all kinds of other obligations and things that might be pressing on them, so we will make these available. We'll make all the documents linkable so that you can go on and check it out. We'll have the online suggestion box so that we can engage folks. But these are gonna be important conversations. The safety one and security one is gonna be just as important, right? And so we wanna make sure that we're engaging you, that we're listening to you, that we're giving you a voice in the process, that you're getting out and talking to other folks in the process. Yeah, this is it's gonna affect the entire community, right? And there's a group of people that don't have kids in school who will also say, but I can't afford this, right? And so we have to also educate them, and so hopefully, you know, they'll come out to some of these sessions, you know, if they're interested as taxpayers as well, and educate themselves and see and hear what challenges we're facing.
Which school is the worst?
Is in the worst shape.
No, it's not.
That's what I meant, that's what I meant, worst shape. I
I
would
asked
say
Don
worst
that
as
question,
in,
is
I
Don's
would
all
never say
here?
that.
Yeah.
But which one's in the worst shape?
Don, I
Out of all
asked
of
you
them.
this.
Yes, you did. So they're all the same, but WP has more challenges because
It's
of
older?
And it's
large
bigger,
size.
yeah.
No,
Right.
size.
Oh, I thought it was older because it was the original high school. Oh.
It's got
got here, but
sections
good to
that were in
know.
the forties, in the fifties, in the sixties.
And a flood zone too, correct?
Well, it is in a flood zone,
I guess
yes,
to like
but
the community here that doesn't have kids, where's your guys' head? I think I've always wanted to know that, just like kind of where are you guys thinking?
I'm on the board of it, so
Okay.
that's why I'm here. I'm not in the mood to share my thinking right now. Because there's so many permutations of what we could do. I happen to be from Bridgewater also. And Bridgewater was the town that voted against consolidation 10-1, or 90% against. I don't know how they would feel today, so.
I don't think they're aware of all the
Roxbury voted
issues.
against it too,
Yeah.
by a huge, by a margin of 500 to 300. So,
I just wonder.
I think it's also being, we all need to know what's going on in the schools, and I think once you know, knowledge is power, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have
That
to
was the
be-
idea.
And it's
No,
important
it's
to be an
huge.
independent in your knowledge, right? To do your own research. and
Absolutely.
To really be clear about what it is that you envision for your community and for your child. And I think it's easy to want to feel inclusive about what your community wants. And I think it's really easy to do that. But I think it's really important that we all play a role. I mean, just the presentation that was at Washington Primary School and then coming here is even more eye-opening to me, which makes me really want to even go to Burnham next. So even as a parent, it's hard enough to be away for one evening, but I encourage you to try to go to
I was
other
just I was
other
just trying to go
towns
to Burnham.
because I think it's important to hear what the other community members are saying. Because that gives you more information when you're moving forward, making your decisions.
or listen to the YouTube videos of those meetings.
I feel like I should be there,
Yes.
don't you think?
I
Being there is the best.
See?
Being there is the best. But there are alternatives.
The other thing is probably, if you cannot make one of the meetings in Roxbury, let's say for security, go to the one in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's basically gonna be the same issue.
Yeah.
It may be slightly different because of the layout of the building, but it's, you know, you don't have to go to your hometown meeting.
I also appreciate whoever set up the childcare, so thank you.
No.
Because that allowed both of us to be here, which I think is kind of important, because now we can have the conversation together.
Is there anything you can do going forward to express how vital showing up is to this? Because I think we get a lot of emails from a lot of different components of the school. This is the safety, well-being, and welfare of our children. This is bigger than
I
a
think it's
friendly
us
chat.
talking, I
What?
think we have to talk to
I
other
think so,
parents.
because this is not a friendly chat. This
It's
is
hard for that, like, they can send as many emails as they want, but I think it's,
Yeah.
we need to speak to the other
It-
parents.
that's exactly right. It would be really helpful if you would
It's so
spread the
hard,
word
but
to
you
everyone
have
you
to.
know, and not just people
Pick
in the
up, just start
schools.
talking to them.
Not
We
just
need
parents.
people in the community who aren't parents,
everyone. Get on it.
Yeah,
or
I
who
know.
aren't
The
parents
people
of
that
current
lived in
kids.
town for years
You
also.
can start
like,
with parents,
that would
that's what you see every day.
They don't wanna change the
Uh-uh.
many of them that
Yeah.
don't change.
That's true.
they may watch them online.
There you go.
You see, one of the difficult things.
Let's update it, clip it, make it formal, and we'll put it on, we put it in the town email, I expected more people, honestly.
Because unfortunately,
We're
parents
continuing
don't want
to
to
do that.
vote as much as the
Old
greater
people.
population. I didn't want to say that more.
I'm an old people, so all I can say.
Well, I mean, I'm prejudiced because I am on the board, but you asked the question of what people, I had 2 children go through Region 12, from kindergarten
I
through
gotta
12.
find my best.
And they're now 26 and 31.
I'll be
Okay,
okay.
and I will tell you that my view of the world is we need to have the best schools in the state, the best opportunities here. Why? Because if we don't do that, we're not going to attract young people like yourselves with children. And if we don't do that, there's no one's going to buy my house when it's time to retire. So anyone who's older or who thinks that they don't have a dog in this hunt is wrong, because we all live in the same community. And let me tell you something, the quality of the education your children are getting is spectacular. Okay? I mean, look, and
We're
we,
trying
and
to
we,
figure out a way to live here.
and when they get to the middle high school, we're trying to give them career opportunities and things like that. I mean, we spent money on a planetarium up there, and now, after 2 years of that planetarium, the first kid that went to college is majoring in astrophysics. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to start that process in pre-K and work it all the way up. But there's no reason why we shouldn't have the best schools. Roxbury is the wealthiest town in Litchfield County, okay? This is the 5th lowest tax town in Connecticut. Third now. Okay, we're down to 3rd lowest tax town in Connecticut.
Apparently not for long. I apologize.
Not for long.
I can.
But the other thing is, we are an exceptionally well-run, we have the highest credit rating that a school system that doesn't have taxing powers can have, with AA+ credit rating. You can't get higher than that. And when they came to look at us, they realized that we had millions of dollars in the bank for extraordinary, physical plant issues, and that we're extremely well-run. And so that's going to give us the ability to borrow money cheaper than a lot of other places. So when it comes time to do this, you think less of the X million dollars you have to spend to build it. What is the annual amount of money that you have to spend, and what impact does that have on your taxes? Because these things get bonded over, could be as much as 40 years.
Are there proposals from 10 years ago or 20 years ago when these votes were taking place regarding where a comprehensive primary school might be placed, or
Yes, and not the
how?
agricultural building.
There were, and they were really bad. One proposal for a consolidated school was on a property that, there was a guy by the name of Mundy that owned 131 acres off of Route 199. And they were gonna buy 20 acres, 16 of which was part of the Battle Swamp, one of the most pristine swamps in Roxbury. It was a complete disastrous place. But if you wanted to build a school, either for one town, we don't own the schools. The school district, the town owns this school, this property. The only property the school district owns is Chippewa. And Chippewa is 131 acres, and that's a place you could actually build another building.
It's 131 acres?
131 acres, 131, it's on both sides of the road.
I don't know if we know that yet, though. I think that we're just in the beginning stages of trying to figure out what the problems are before we decide where.
No, and that's a million miles down the road. Jen's right, don't even think about that. Is there a place that we could build a school or schools? The answer is we'll find it. Right here in Roxbury, Apple Lane Park, you love that park, don't you? You realize that that was donated by the Hurlbut family for school purposes. It was donated on which to build a school. And it never got built as a school. And so there you go. But this property is a terrible piece of land. Okay? And that's the problem. That makes it
It
hard.
is.
But it's a great school and it's
No,
amazing.
it's not. All the safety concerns, asbestos, it's not that great.
But
Well,
it's
been
a
great
hard
place
piece of
bring your
land to
kids,
deal
and
with.
I was
because of the
thrilled to
hill.
be able to bring my kids to Washington Primary School.
It served
I'm ready
its
for
purpose
now.
for many years, but
I'm sure.
It served this purpose and it got expanded and when they built the original building here, it made sense. It was a good place to build it. When they built the top part of the school, the upper part, that made a lot of sense. But when we outgrew that and built the lower part, the transition down the hill was not easy.
If we circle back to that question, the question is how do we get more people out, right? So
A lot of people
that's
text
what we
me,
need you to
they
tell
needed
us,
a
like,
Zoom.
what-
A lot of people said, and we hate to say it, I have like 10 people on message, was there a Zoom? I hate that part of the world, I wish we were all here.
Was there what?
A Zoom link.
Yeah, I know a couple of people that would have jumped on Zoom.
Yeah, and we had discussions about that at the board meeting, whether or not to do that, like,
I think maybe for safety it would be a good idea, if you could try and do a Zoom.
Well, we didn't want to do a Zoom meeting because the problem is that it's,
well, that's one of the risks, right, is that now
It's not as
maybe
engaging.
I'm the
More
guy
distracting.
doing the Zoom by myself, right, in an empty room. And that if people wanna come and talk about it, they should come out and talk about it, but, if Zoom is something to consider, we can certainly think about that gets more.
You're just putting brochures out in the markets, and you have the old people who don't want to go on the internet, they can go to the market and you can see the posting on the market.
I believe that after COVID, it's hard to get people to come out to anything. Even when we think we're gonna have a very contentious board meeting, 2 people show up, right? Schools are all saying, hey, our PTOs are having a hard time getting people out for things. It's just it's a larger problem with getting people motivated to come out and do things. So one, thank you for you guys. But if you have ideas or ways that resonate with folks, you know, we're willing to try anything and everything to message. But, you know, is it white noise if we just keep sending an email? Maybe it is, right? So that's where we need to know, like, what are better ways to reach people?
I guess I didn't understand, you know, from the primary priorities graphic, I didn't quite understand that what we're talking about is really an existential question about the future of the school.
The chart's confusing.
That did not come through to me. You know, I thought it was sort of like informational meetings about security or about the facility or about the education, but this feels like actually, you know, there's a sense of alarm now that we have to begin to work towards a solution. So maybe that can come through in the messaging, not to scare people, but
or something.
this is serious.
Right, you need outrage. You need the parents to be outraged.
Yeah, we
It's
thought
not
about
what
that.
we're going to send around to our
Okay, so
our
it's
peers,
But-
so.
There goes Facebook
Let me just tell you
again.
something. 39 years ago, when my son was 4 years old, there were meetings just like this, and the parents were horrified, and then it came down to the vote.
Yeah.
And when it came down to the vote, that's when we were
Less
to
horrified.
do what we needed to do. But it's not.
Is it worse now at this meeting than it was 7 years ago?
I don't know. I don't remember. No, it wasn't. It was 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
The buildings were in better shape in some ways 40 years ago, okay? They were 40 years newer.
40 years later.
But I had a
It's
budget
even
presentation
worse.
from a superintendent 30 years ago saying the buildings were functionally obsolete then. You know, and that was a 30-year-old budget presentation. And here we are 3 decades later.
I mean, the newest building in the district is Chappaqua, and it's 52 years old. And when we, but we have put a lot of money into that building. Because it doesn't have the same functional obsolescence that these buildings do. It's got an HVAC system, you know, air exchanges, and the building is very comfortable. So, you know, unfortunately, these buildings were built in an earlier day with an earlier time, and we tried to make them do. And now the question is,
But there's also a risk, right? So if we say like, hey, this is an existential threat, like come out, we also don't want people to feel like the school's unsafe, I don't wanna bring my kids there, I'm gonna pull them off in the private school, we're gonna move, you know, like, so
your school's
you have
safe.
to balance this too, right? We don't wanna cause widespread panic and hysteria. And so what's getting that right, I think, is what we're trying to really hone in on, right?
Actually, Don said it really well when he said, these schools are safe. The problem is, in order to make the kind of improvements we need to make and the kind of things we'd like to do, then we start to get running up against the wall of hazards. And that's where the problem is. The problem is we've picked the low-hanging fruit and there's little we can do now to solve the bigger problems. We need a more comprehensive solution, and to do that, we need you, every one of you, because this is your town, this is your school. And the reason we started individually at schools is each school has unique problems. And we figured if we tried to get all 3 problems on the thing, you'd be here for 6 hours. And so that's why we didn't want to have, you know, too many meetings. So we organized it around each school. The idea is you're gonna see what the building problems are, what the security problems are. Then you're gonna get into something that's more ecumenical, the educational needs, because those are all the same for each of the 3 schools. And then eventually we're gonna bring everybody together to talk about what are we gonna, you know, what should we be doing? What should we be thinking about? What do you want us to do? So that we hear from you, because we don't wanna just make a decision and then have to sell it. You know, we want a decision that everybody feels organically is the right decision. And it's a tough one, but it's a doable one, and I don't think it's gonna break the bank either.
Greg, you know, another thing that you said is, you
Patrick
know,
didn't hear that because his head exploded an hour ago.
you just pointed out that Chappaqua is 50 years old, but the older people in the community still refer to that as the new school.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we don't want to keep you for 6 hours, it's only been 2. Thank you guys for coming
Thank you
out.
so much.